Hello, everyone, and welcome to Empowered, a 2-day celebration of female, trans femme, and non binary creators. Welcome in. I hope you enjoyed the show last night. It was absolutely phenomenal. This is the Them Fatales panel, the non binary panel, where we chat with some of the non binary creators that you know and love. My name is Nikki Stones. I'm a member of Team Stream Queens, and I am your local non binary crush from Dublin, Ireland. If my pronouns are she, they, and we have some amazing, amazing panelists with us today. We have Evel Queen. Would you like to introduce yourself, darling?
Hello, my name is Evel Queen, and I am the prettiest bitch you've ever seen. My pronouns in drag are she, her. Out of drag, my pronouns are they, them.
Thank you, Eve. We also have another amazing member of Team Stream Queens, Arson Nikki.
Hi, my name is Arson. I have been openly non-binary for 6 years, and I use she, her, and they, them pronouns both in and out of face.
Awesome. Thank you, Arson. We also have an amazing special guest with us today. We have the gorgeous Apple Glass. Apple, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Appleglass. And yes, I do go by Apple in and out of drag. I'm your friendly neighborhood Thoi Toy. And in addition to doing drag, I'm also getting a PhD in drag. So I study drag professionally too. So it's awesome.
Come
Yeah.
on,
Thank you for having
education.
me.
We'd love to see it. And last but
We
not
won't go
least,
too much Judith Butler today. Don't worry. We're not going to do that.
and last but not least, we have, well, our favorite king. It's Lesbiana.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lesbiana. I go by they, them. I'm still very recently new to my non-binary identity. And yes, I am on Team Stream Queens. And yes, I am a drag king artist.
We'd love to see it. Thank you, Les. So, yes, of course. Momentary things. It's fine. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. We fixed? We good? Okay. We had some mild tech issues. Do not stress. It's fine. It's a Stream Queens event. You know it has to happen like this. But we do also have another special guest from the team who will be joining us later on. Unfortunately, they did have some internet issues, so Your Highness will be joining once their internet comes back in. So please stay tuned because they will have a lot to say regarding the topics that we are going to be discussing. So I suppose we should just start with non-binary in definition is the rejection of gender binary, but to each of us it can mean something completely different. So my first question that I'd like to ask is, what does being non-binary feel like to you? What do you like when you say you're non-binary? What does that mean to you? Arson, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I think for me, the framing it makes most sense to frame this question for me personally in terms of how I found out I was non-binary, because I think that's a question that a lot of folks get is like, well, how did you know? It's that sort of like, how did you know you were gay? It's like, well, there's for different people, it's different. So my experience was always growing up, as sort of like an effeminate child. You would, especially in like elementary, middle school, get those comments where it would be like, oh, like that's a woman, that's she that like that's a girl, or they'd be like, oh, that person isn't manly enough. And whenever I would get sort of gendered insults like that, they never felt correct either way. I was always I was never really comfortable with like being told that I was a woman, but also when, people would tell me like, okay, when you grow up, you're going to be the man of the house, or you need to like, be more manly or man up. That never felt right either. And of course, that has some like stuff to do with toxic masculinity, which is a whole, is a, a whole topic in and of itself. But in terms of like actually having those like things apply to me, it didn't quite fit. And then, I mean, as years have gone on and we've had more language to talk about being non binary, which is, I think, a really important development, especially in Western society, we haven't necessarily had the language to speak about our own experiences very specifically until what feels like relatively recently, even though being non binary has been around for millennia. Um, I it got to the point where, like, when people would refer to me with he him pronouns, it would either feel like they were referring to somebody else, or it like stung a little bit every single time, and like I couldn't pinpoint why. And then when I suddenly started to find the language, I was like, this non-binary label fits perfectly. And you know, it's stuck.
No, yeah, that's really, really that's one of the best ways. That's actually one of the best ways I've ever heard it being put. So thank you, Arson. Thank you, Arson, for that. I'm like, God damn it, now I've got to think of something good to say. But Apple, what say you on how did like what does non-binary feel like to you? What do you call being non-binary?
Sure. So I think, like you sort of opened up with, I think for myself, for quite a while, and I think for many non-binary people out there, it sort of starts as this rejection. You don't necessarily, like Arsen mentioned, you don't. It doesn't feel right to be labeled he or she. Something's off. You may not know exactly what it is. I know for the longest time, I would get emails that would say like Mister da 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 da, Mister da da da, and I was like, I don't know what this is. At first, I thought it was just because I was feeling old. I'm like, no, that's my dad. No, and then I realized, no, now I am old, and I still feel this way. Uh, and so I also recently started using MX or mix, however you would like to say it. Uh, I will say that if you're familiar with Jeffrey Marsh, they recently said something on their Instagram that I definitely resonate with. They said that they weren't raised as a boy. They were raised as the object of misogyny and queer phobia. For myself, I grew up in very, very, very conservative rural Alabama. You can just imagine the things that I grew up learning and things that were said about me, and I'm still dealing with those today, of course. But it was very much so. I didn't even come out as gay until I was 22 to myself. And so when I started to discover a little bit more about gender, and um, I was actually listening to oh gosh, what's the name of the song? What's the name of the song? What's going on? Four non blondes. You know the song. Hey, hey,
Mhm.
hey, what's going on? I was 25 when I heard it. And it says 25 years of my life is still. And it was sort of a revelation. And I said, I'm going to start painting my nails. And little by little, painting my nails, doing my acrylics, going out in makeup, wearing heels, more and more as I approach this whole idea of so gender dysphoria, but this idea of gender euphoria, that became the label that people understand as non-binary for me. At least it's the closest to my experience that I can sort of explain it to people. Yeah, it's gender euphoria.
That that's a really good way to put it, actually. And you mentioned dysphoria and euphoria, and we will definitely touch on that
Mhm.
in the future, because I feel like as non-binary people, we do experience a level of dysphoria and euphoria when we present in when we have to be presenting in some ways. But Eve, I want to know your thoughts on being non-binary as well. Like, what do you call it? How do you express yourself in your non-binary way?
So for me, I'm new to non-binary. I just recently I was accepting all pronouns. I was like, oh, I'll use he, him, they, them, she, her, like doesn't matter. Um, but it got to a point where whenever I heard he, him, it felt like a gut punch to me. And then I was like, something isn't fitting here. Like something isn't working here. And then now I'm exclusively they, them out of drag. And for me, it was looking in the mirror and seeing a disconnect and seeing that the person who's reflecting back at me isn't who I think they are. There's something more. There's a story there, and I need to try to find this story. So it started with, experimenting with nail painting. That was like the first. I think that's like a door opener. Like every like non-binary person starts with nail painting, and they're like, "This feels good to me. This feels like, I was told my entire life that, painting your nails is for girls. Don't do it." Ugh. So when I was able to start doing that, I was like, wait a second. I've been lied to. So now right now I'm in that like experimental phase. I just recently bought myself a skirt, and I tried it on at the store, and I looked in the mirror and I cried. And I was just like, this is what I've needed. I called my sister. My sister is like literally my biggest cheerleader. And I told her, I was like, I bought a skirt. She's like, send me pictures I need to see. So it's definitely, I'm going through the exploration of it and seeing how far I want to go with it, because I'm still unsure, and it's a journey, and it's exciting. It's exciting, those moments of euphoria, because, you know, we tend to focus on the dysphoria of it all, and hitting those moments of euphoria, just the impact that they have is just so powerful.
Firstly, I just want to say congratulations, because that like we all know that coming out as non-binary it's such a huge big deal, and um Ivy's waving at me. Perfect. Technical moments very quickly, y'all. We are joined by the amazing, the stunning, the glamorous and gorgeous Your Highness. Their internet is back.
For now, we'll see
Welcome
what
in.
happens. I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm gonna take a few deep breaths because I was literally just spiraling. But here we are.
Yeah.
Do not. Mhm. Perfect. Amazing. Amazing. Okay. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Your Highness, welcome in. We're so glad to
Thank
have
you.
you. Do you want to talk a little bit about yourself and what being non-binary is to you?
Did I interrupt anything? Anybody
No, no, no,
speaking?
no,
Mhm.
no, no, no.
Okay.
You.
What was the question?
So like, let's do oh my god. Okay, so imagine we're on MSN, right? It's like ASL, and like what does
ASMR.
non-binary mean to you?
Well, I'm still forming my language around that and what that means to me, but I think that's part of what's beautiful about it. That's part of the freedom in it for me is I mean as long as I can remember, it's like I haven't had the language, well, up until very recently, but as if I look back, like I've always been this ever changing being, waking up one day feeling more one thing, waking up the next day feeling more of another thing. And as challenging as that's been, um I'm finding more comedy, um but it's still very challenging, and I'm still forming my language around that and my identity. But the beautiful thing is that I don't have to ground it in any one thing. Yeah.
No, awesome. Yeah, and that's like that's the great part about being non-binary. You're not stuck with just being like, this is what non-binary is. And I feel like we're gonna touch on that like a lot throughout this panel of how non-binary is. See, there's so many different aspects to it. Like you can be who like however you feel is you, and that is still non-binary. But Les, we've got to ask you, what's your experiences of being non-binary? What do you feel non-binary is to you?
Um, for me, non-binary is like many have said, like you don't feel grounded to one side or the other. It's always interchanging. Um, as like your heinous and Eve, I'm still fairly new to um, non-binary, and I'd say it's been like it's been 2 years, but I'm still like figuring out like what exactly that means for me. Um, but yeah, it's just not being completely to one side or the other.
Mhm. That's one of the best ways to put it. And I mean, like, we can all agree, 2 years is not a long time.
Yeah.
Like, listen, you learn so much about yourself in like over really long periods of time. So, and that's the great part about this. You don't need to just know suddenly. It's a journey of acceptance and self expression. I know for myself, I didn't really know what non-binary was a few years ago. I met someone who was non-binary when I was 20, and I kind of was like, no, I'm male, I'm male. And then I think it was about, well, actually, I'm not gonna lie, it was during quarantine was the real kind of smack across the head, because when you're stuck inside, you spend a lot of time with yourself, and no one enjoys spending time with themselves because they have to actually learn more about themselves. But for myself, I definitely had that moment of realization where I was like, I'm not a dude. I'm not a girl. I'm somewhere in between. And I feel like I know Eve and and Apple had kind of talked about painting nails being like the first thing, and all of these kind of the first kind of, oh, this is something I'll try. For me, it was actually drag. Drag was the first thing that kind of was like, oh, this is a new way to express a completely different type of gender for you. And I feel like drag for me was that gender expression of the feminine side, and I could be inherently more masculine out of drag. But then when I stopped presenting super hyper feminine drag, it became more of like a, no, this is a gender identity instead of just a persona that I've created. Um, and that's kind of what being non-binary is to me. But I feel this is a quick fire round. Quick fire round. Quick fire round. We have a few quick fire rounds through this because we've got loads of things to go through. But freedom, what freedom have you found in acceptance? What's the number one thing that comes to mind when you have when you think of freedom from being non-binary? I'm gonna go to Arson.
I would say for me, just right off the top of my head, freedom from expectations about growing older and what that means.
Love it. Love it. We'll go to Eve.
um, I would say just like overall, just freedom from a binary. You have the ability to just walk among that spectrum, and you can place yourself at any given moment at any point on that spectrum.
Love it. Love it. We'll go to Les.
Um, I would say probably something similar to what Eve said. Like, you don't have to present as one or the other. You can do whatever you want. Um, and that's not up for discussion from anyone. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Your Highness?
Um, freedom from this flesh bag that my celestial being landed in. Um, knowing that my appearance does not define my reality. Yeah, flesh bags. Be gone.
Forever calling them flashbacks now.
That's
Apple?
I don't think I can follow up with after flashbacks. I guess I'll go back to similar to what I was saying before, gender euphoria. This lack of a need to express myself in one way even thinking about to like when I was little and like walking around in like my mom's heels and everything. And I like found like true joy in just being able to express myself and do whatever I want to do. Can I curse on this channel? I don't know. I don't
Yes,
know.
yes, you
Do whatever the fuck I want to do. God damn it. It's great. It's great.
It is the best. And for me, it's definitely that whole feeling of I can actually go out and wear platforms and not feel guilty about it. That is a huge thing for me because I'm short, so I need that extra boost of height. And it's like,
I'm already 6'2" and I still do it. It's okay.
listen, when in doubt, platform it out. That's what I always say.
Ah!
So now, being non-binary, all of us, we like, and I mean, we're all in a way, we all are like, we all just present kind of somewhere between male and female, like, or like there is no, like, for a lot of us, there's no kind of look has been like, oh, that person looks like a dude or that person looks like a girl. Like, there's none of that for us. What does it feel like when we are recognized in spaces that are specifically gendered? Like, what so like if you were to go to a bar and use a gendered bathroom and will not be called out for it, what does that feel like? I know for myself, going out to one of the big things for me was I used to work in a, well, I still kind of do work in a little small business which sells body paint and so like focuses a lot on creativity and expression. So it was always a big thing of there was a huge fight within the studio space to try and change all of the bathrooms to gender neutral. Um, but when I was going into the women's bathroom, like I was content. I was happy. I felt accepted. I felt like I was safe. It was a safety that I had never felt before in other places. So, Your Highness, would you like to start us off? What did you what do you think?
Can you restate the
Restate the question? Of course, of course.
I'm still spiraling from
Um,
my internet issue.
you are okay. Do not worry at all. It is. Listen, I woke up from a nap about 20 minutes ago. I know the feeling. Um, so what does it mean to you to be recognized in a specifically gendered space? So something that is very like, this is male, this is female. What does it feel like to be recognized in one of those? I,
They're
uh-oh.
thinking long and hard.
Oh no.
Their flesh bag is updating.
Oh my
Wait
god.
for the
Oh,
download.
technical difficulties, everyone. This, you know what? Oh no. Okay,
No.
we will come back to Your Highness. We will definitely come back to Your Highness. Yeah, we'll let Your Highness reboot very quickly. Um, Apple, what does it feel like to you to be recognized in gendered spaces?
Yeah, so this happens. I mean, obviously, it happens quite a bit, but in particular, so with my PhD and all my research, I actually work in Palestine and Israel. And when you're in Arabic and in Hebrew, those are very gendered languages. Every verb is gendered, everything's gendered. And so there's no real, I have to default to masculine pronouns. I don't have to, but that's typically what happens. Because I will say, as someone who was a psi male at birth, I know that within a binary society, how I look. If I'm not, in drag, I'll have full beard, all that. I know I look like a dude, and so um, I will say, especially like with pronouns and everything, I don't necessarily. I use they them. I'll use she her as well, but when people meet me in these gendered spaces, it's like you get one. I'll give it to you. I know how I look. Um, but as time goes on, I also notice that I have to check myself in these spaces. Whereas I want to come forward and just be as free as possible. You mentioned bathrooms, and I was at a conference a few years ago, and they were doing gender neutral bathrooms, and I noticed that many of us non-binary people, as well as others, were more than welcome. It was perfectly safe, like you said, to enter a woman's bathroom. but I noticed the women weren't going into the men's bathroom. I think could be another discussion about safety in that term. I think I do still have that privilege of living life as a 6'2" bearded white dude, as how society sees me walking down the street. I don't have to be afraid. Um, I think I think being in gendered spaces, while um, it's interesting to be sort of lumped in, like even this event, like Femmes and Thems, it's sometimes interesting to do that because I don't necessarily, I didn't grow up like living a femme life. And so in that respect, I am still new to it. So I think that for me, the easy answer is to say how I feel going forward. I think the harder answer is to say, I need to check myself constantly. I don't know if that last sentence made sense. That wasn't a full sentence, but I'm going to go with it. Yeah.
No, it
Yeah.
totally made
Checking my
sense.
privilege at the door, in other words, especially with
Yeah.
bathrooms.
I see your Highness is moving again.
Am
Your
I?
Highness is back. You're back. Your Highness
Oh.
version 2.0 has landed. The
Oh my
beta is
God.
no longer here. We're in the full release.
You're welcome. You're perfect. You're beautiful.
Where would we be without you? Your Highness, do you want to take the question?
Yeah, I will speak specifically on being like in femme spaces and like woman identified spaces. Like that to me has been something that's always been pushed away from me. Like I've always wanted it my whole life. I remember specifically like one moment where my family was all together and all of the women in the family were like, we're gonna go have like a girls' night. And I was like, so I'm coming, right? And they were like, no. And I was like so heartbroken. And I just didn't understand like why I couldn't be with them. And like even in school, I was part of a class that was like gendered, and like the boys had to do certain things and the girls had to do certain things, and I wanted to do all the things the girls were doing. I mean, it was cool to learn blacksmithing and tinsmithing, all that stuff, but I wanted to sew. I wanted to like, and the fact that all of those things again are still like so gendered is a problem. But like the fact that I was literally not allowed to do any of that stuff was devastating. So it means the world to me to be able to finally like be in these spaces and like seen and accepted. It's just always been pushed away from me my whole life.
Mhm. Definitely. Can I actually ask you another question? Do you feel like drag has helped you with that, being
Oh,
accepted in women's spaces?
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, especially because like my drag has evolved over so much over the past 10 years. It's always been creature, like monster. And that also comes from like this feeling of always being like the other, or like not human, like something that's like doesn't isn't defined by gender, that is like very anti that. um but yeah, drag has helped me in those spaces and connect in those spaces as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Your Highness. Arson, how about yourself? Because I think you're the one who's been out the longest out of all of us. So what is how have you words are hard, y'all. Words are hard, harder words. I don't know what I'm saying. It is like 9:30 at night. I'm in bits.
Words.
What does it feel like to you to be recognized in spaces that are very, very clearly like gendered? You're muted. Push to talk. Nope. Okay. Well, we'll this is going really well. Okay, Eve, do you wanna tackle the question, and then we'll go back
Yeah.
to you, Arson.
For me in particular, like whenever I'm in like male specific situations, there's always that discomfort of my queerness coming out first, and being seen as a threat. And the second portion is the discomfort of I don't feel like them. I don't see myself as them. So there's always I've never been in a situation, and this is why I feel like I love the community that I'm in with when it comes with Stream Queens and in my own personal community is I'm seen as who I tell people that I am. And they see me as that and they respect that. Whereas in other situations, however I'm presenting, they will see male first and only male. And I could tell them till I'm blue in the face, as blue as my dress, that, I don't identify with you. I don't identify as that, but it's not respected. So, I love the internet because I've been able to curate the spaces that I want to curate with the people that will respect me for who I am.
Mhm. And the internet and streaming is so good for that because what we put out, we can, like, it's what we put out. We choose what we can
Mhm.
show to people. We can present
And
however we want to.
if I had this like when I was like 16, 17, 18, if I was able to come to spaces that had queerness in your face, I feel like my life would have been so much easier.
Definitely. Definitely. Arson, is your microphone working?
I don't know, is it?
It
Yes.
is.
You're
Yes.
back.
I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be real with you. Sometimes it is just an unplug and a replug, and it solves literally everything.
Listen, the IT crowd. Hello, IT. Have you turned it off and back on again?
Mhm.
Like,
Have you turned your flashback off today?
bye. Bye. See you next time.
That was the end of the panel.
Make sure to stick around. We got even more.
Feel free to let me know if I cut in and out. But what I would like to talk about specifically in regards to this convention, having it be Women's History Month and being recognized on a non-binary panel like during a weekend like this, is actually really exciting because while I don't believe that we are all necessarily affected by patriarchy and or misogyny in the exact same way, it does affect all of us to a certain degree. And this type of coalition building where we get to talk about our gender identity and our experiences, whether, it's with women, whether it's with being non-binary, whether it's with, something else entirely, really does, in my opinion, push conversations forward about how to dismantle systems of oppression that are gender-based. And to have that sort of recognition from a women focused weekend of panels is really cool because it reads to me that people are ready to have these conversations about how we can all work together to make sure that these systems come toppling down.
Preach.
Exactly. Preach it. Preach it. I could not have said it better myself. And Les, so I mean for you I don't know what your situation is like, but I feel like it could be a little bit different. So for you, what is it like being recognized in gendered spaces? Because for us, it's very like, oh, we're recognized in female spaces. But
Mhm.
what is it like for you?
Um, for me, whenever I am in kind of women's spaces, I I feel like I don't belong. Um, there have been like different times where like I'm in my nephew is yelling in the background. Sorry. Um, but there have been situations where I am mostly around those that do present more female and do identify as female, um, that I don't quite fit in, just because I don't have those kind of experiences that they do, or I don't see things the way that they do. Um, but when it comes to when I've been in some spaces, I have been depending on it is not really depending on what I'm wearing, but I have been addressed as Mr. or Sir, and even when people are saying that, I don't know, I don't think I like that, and so I'm like, no, that's not me." Same with, like, "Ma'am," I'm like, "Ooh, no, 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 no." Um, and so when I get into more of, like, male spaces, I still kind of feel the same, like, I don't feel like I belong there, um, and I feel like I don't know. It kind of like I don't know, I just don't feel myself comfortable in those type of spaces because of toxic masculinity and just the overall, like, atmosphere sometimes in the male spaces that I have been in, because I do kind of, um like, my job before the pandemic was that I was working at a music venue, and as great and open as that environment is, there have been some situations to where it has been difficult to kind of, like, express my non-binaryism and to kind of kind of a assert my pronouns. But yeah.
That yeah, I I I understand that, and I feel like we all understand you, and we feel we feel you, we feel you, we feel you. But yeah, I don't know what to say. Sorry, I'm a shy moderator. Um,
No.
um, okay. So in terms of, so we know that, like, obviously being non-binary and just all like we have a lot of terms that come up, like amab aside male at birth, afab aside female at birth, all of these terms. Um, when or do you feel is it appropriate to bring up those terms like when discussing non-binary and being non-binary, whether that's socially, medically, personally? Do we like is it appropriate, and if so, when is it appropriate? Um, Apple, do you want to kick us off with this one?
Sure, sure. Um, I think it depends on everyone, of course. For me, again, I think it comes down for me, it comes down to lots of privilege. Again, when I because live in a binary society, I know that most of society will see me as male. And I think it definitely affects, or at least it should affect, how I still approach spaces. Even though I don't go by he, him, that doesn't mean that the life that I grew up in, the preconceived notions that have been instilled in my flesh bag, it doesn't mean that those weren't affected by me growing up as male, right? So I think it's incredibly important there. I think it's less important in, and I would love to hear what other people have to say about this. I think we often talk about medical things here, and I'm not sure for most of our medical situations. I don't know how important it is. I am not that kind of doctor, not a doctor yet. Anyway, but I'm not that kind of doctor. So but I know most of my interactions with my doctor, it's because I have a sinus infection or I have this or that, and it has nothing to do with my gender. And also, your gender doesn't have anything to do with anything downstairs. It has nothing to do with your chromosomes. There are more than the two sets of chromosomes. Biology tells us, and I can give you sources if you want, just hit me up later. Biology tells us that gender doesn't exist anywhere in the animal kingdom. Biological sex does not exist. It doesn't exist anywhere in the animal kingdom. So I think um, for me, it comes down to privilege. I think that's one of the only places at this point in my life that I should really be considering my gender as anything that it's not.
Okay. That's
That was
yeah, that was
my soapbox for a second. I heard myself. I was like, oh, I got kind of loud there. Ugh, let me come back down.
you were like,
Like,
okay.
Oh, the
oof,
That was
passion.
that was a
like,
lot. That was a really, really interesting way of putting it. I hadn't thought about it in that way. I like when you brought up privilege, it kind of made me think of like for me, I know like I don't really refer to myself as a sign male birth. Like occasionally I'll be like, I'm a dude, but that's only like as a joke.
right.
Um,
It's
but when you
always
were saying
bruh, never
privilege, it
bro.
does bro, dude, bruh.
I
I
like
feel like we
bruv.
should
Yeah,
If
bruh.
we
someone
should
says
have like a
bruv, I'm like, I'll accept that.
It's I don't go by they them, but you can always call me daddy. Like that's it. That's it. It's
oh my god.
sorry, my flashback's getting heated.
I'm just like BRB screen. In for BRB screen. But definitely privilege was that is something because I feel like being able to walk down the street and like being able to walk down the street and even though I sometimes will look male and people may look at me and like women specifically will may look at me and be like fear because that looks like a man walking down the street and I mean I wear all black so it's not helping but privilege is very important and I feel at times when I'm discussing like now that you're bringing that up it kind of clicked in my head it's like oh maybe amab is a term that I should be using in that kind of sense of things so thank you for enlightening me with that and enlightening all of us with that let's go to Les. What do you when do you feel it's appropriate to bring up the terms or do you feel it's appropriate to bring up the terms?
I think always whenever you're introducing yourself to someone, like I think it's very important to establish those things. Um, because it kind of prevents misgendering, of course. Um, I know for me, I usually, same. I was just like, I prefer they them, but I'm not gonna attack you if you use something else as long as you're not being harmful or hurtful with it, then I don't care. Um, but I've very recently been like very adamant about establishing that and like sticking to it in whatever space that I'm in and anything, even when I'm in drag.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Les. Thank you. Eve, what do you think? What's your opinions?
So as because we got surprise, we got the questions beforehand, so we kind of had like a little idea of what was coming. I had no idea how to answer this question, but hearing it now and hearing Apple and Les on their opinions on the situation, essentially using AFAB and AMAB in certain situations, I think is almost erasing that individual at that point in time that they're in right now and the journey that they've gone through. Um, Essentially, for me, it's bringing comfort to somebody who may be uncomfortable with the situation. It's like an over explanation, and I feel like maybe in some circumstances, the only time that it would be appropriate is if you're talking with like a medical professional. But in other situations, I don't think it's necessary that you have to let them know, that society put you as, this first, and you've blossomed into who you are now.
Mhm. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I get exactly what you mean with the whole going into like almost over explaining where I know for myself, like if I'm talking about like I mean like this is excuse me, this is open discussion. Obviously we can all share our experiences. I know for me when I'm like talking about like being assigned male at birth, it almost oh my god, we're back, we're okay. Um
Flashbacks, y'all.
It's gross to say, right?
listen, daylight savings affects me more than you think it should. Um, but for me, when I talk about being AMAB, it's like, okay, but like, yeah, so you can tell. Is it important to talk about that? That was then, this is now. Like, forget about that. I want to leave it behind. I don't want to talk about it because it brings up dysphoria and it brings up
Yeah.
feelings of, oh God, I'm not who I want to be. I'm not who I feel like I should be.
And
Um,
essentially it gives them power. It gives them ammunition that they don't need. And
yeah,
I'm not asking you to respect who I was. I'm asking you to respect me at this point in time.
mic drop. Mic drop. Just the sure SM7B hits the floor.
I mean, like, I
Thank you, Eve.
personally like don't refer to people by those unless that's explicitly how they refer to be referred.
Mhm.
What referred to be referred to as? Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so I mean, that's my 2 cents.
No, thank you. Thank you, 100%. And I mean, Arson,
Can you hear me?
yes, we
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay.
You're good.
I've always got. I'm gonna be paranoid for the rest of the panel. In my experience, and this is my own narrow experience, I find that when people refer to me as AMAB non-binary, what they mean is, you are a man, but I don't want to call you a man because that's not politically correct. And for me personally, like I would never begrudge any non-binary person for identifying themselves as AFAB or AMAB, because for some folks that is a very useful shorthand. And if people say that that's how they want to go by, that's how they go by, point blank. But for me personally, it doesn't do justice to my experience, because even though society has projected a specific gender onto me as I've moved through life, that doesn't necessarily mean that I've internalized that in the same way that I would have if I were, say, a cis man. And it just doesn't speak to the specificity of whatever problem is being addressed. Like, for instance, if someone, wants to use, language to talk about my experience, growing up and not necessarily having to deal with the same type of misogyny as, say, like a woman does, that's a conversation to be had by all means. But for me personally, don't use, my assigned gender at birth to get to a shortcut to having that conversation. Um, those are two different things to me personally. And I think, it speaks to this whole thing that, like, being non-binary, I think encourages, and I hope would encourage, but for me specifically does help us get more specific with our language, so that we can, address whatever is happening, any problems that are occurring, anything that needs to be solved with more specificity and directness. Because I think sometimes shorthand references like AMAB non-binary, AFAB non-binary can sort of cut corners that actually need to be steered around in a more careful way.
Mhm. Definitely. And that is actually perfect segue into a viewer question that we got Look at you.
Yes.
Big
This is
ass.
a reminder to everyone in chat. If you have a burning question that you want to ask us, you can use the ask a question in the channel points. It is 50 channel points to ask a question, and hopefully we will get to it. But
But
this
if
one
it's
comes
burning
from
too much, you might want to get that checked out.
There's an wait for that.
I go home.
Okay, bye.
But this question comes from Three Bears Gaming, and they asked, when do you think it's worth it to really work on someone close-minded who could be an ally to help them understand the gender spectrum, and when do you just block and move on? So so you brought up the terms of how it can almost be that you're a man, but I don't want to call you that because society says so. When when do you feel like it's worth it to try and sit them down and be like, no, don't use this term to describe me. This is not how I describe me. This is not being an ally. What do you think, Arson?
For me, in any type of situation like that, and that isn't necessarily just specific to being non-binary. It can, for me, encompass a lot of different sort of intersections of oppression. I feel like if I have a personal line into somebody's heart, I feel like it is my responsibility to make sure that I at least appeal to that side of someone before deciding that this is not worth my time and effort. I think, sometimes it can be something as simple as, for instance, like, if I were to approach my, a family member and be like, look, like, I know you, you've raised me, you've been in my life for a very long time, I know you to be a kind and loving person, and a kind and loving person to me is someone who refers to me with they them pronouns. And I feel like sometimes, you like especially these days, I feel like a lot of people just, if you like, for instance, if I were to send someone like a fact sheet, like, people, that just doesn't register with people, because these days especially, and maybe that's not fair to say because I feel like this has been true for a very long time, but it feels to me like these days people really pay attention to what's in their hearts and not necessarily to like facts and figures, unfortunately. So I think, getting in with that sort of like lead with love, like here's what's up, and if they don't respond to that over time, I would not begrudge any person for, saying, okay, I've spent a lot of time and energy, because it sucks that we have to defend ourselves like that in the first place. So like, if someone doesn't want to take that on, I would never ever ever think less of anyone for doing that. But I do always think, if you have the emotional capacity to do so and the energy tank and the spoons to do so, by all means, like, go in with that. And then if it doesn't work, go from there.
Yeah, yeah, it takes a lot of spoons to talk to people about that kind of stuff. And like, from my experiences, I know, like, I'm out as non-binary to both my parents, but my mom doesn't really like. I feel like with my mom, she's like, oh, you're my son, I birthed you, you're you're my son to me, and you're him. And I'm like, okay, but that's not the point. It's not the point. And she's like, but I don't understand it. And I'm like, look, I think for me, my end all be all end all line when it comes to all of this stuff is, it's not for you to understand, it's just for you to say okay. And
Respect.
to, like, because that is a whole new level of respect and a whole thing of, this is it, this is like, look, I don't understand it, I don't know what's going on, but I love you and I'm willing to do this for you. And that is good. And I feel like if they're not willing to do that, that's kind of the cutting out blocking point for me. But does anyone else have any ideas, any thoughts on it?
I
Eve?
think leading with education is always important, because it can create a domino effect, which you educate somebody and then they accept it. And then they are now, you know, they're educated. They're not ignorant anymore. They're educated. And then they can go on and start educating other people. And I think by the questions stated, you can understand if a person is going to be willing to listen to you, or if they're coming because they they don't understand, nor do they want to understand. But you do not owe anybody an explanation for who you are as a person, and that right there is that should be the first and foremost. Like, say to yourself, do I owe this person an explanation? um am I going to get to this person? Are they going to see me for me afterwards? If no comes up at all, then it's a straight up don't even have a conversation, because essentially what will happen is you'll feel like shit in the long run. So first and foremost, you don't owe anybody an explanation at all, but education does have an effect on people. And the moment you can take somebody out of ignorance is worth so much time. But you don't owe shit to anybody.
And to jump off that real quick, like, if you do take a moment to have that conversation with somebody to educate that person, and it's not, at least in the moment, does not seem received, at least that seed has been planted and it could grow over time. But again, you know, don't waste your energy waiting around for that to develop, unless you have, again, the energy and the spoons to let that develop. Um, but yeah, even if in a moment it is not seeming received, at least you've planted the seed, and that that in itself is powerful and can make huge waves. You just may not see it immediately.
Mhm. Apple or Liz, have you anything to add?
Um, I think same with Eve, like when someone asks a question, you can kind of tell what their intentions are depending on how the question is worded. I've definitely seen that kind of like in the digital space because we are creators here on Twitch. When people do come in asking those very specific gendered questions or certain things, you can kind of get the tone of like, are they genuine? Are they genuinely asking? Are they genuinely seeking something along the lines of like help or advice? Or are they being hateful, trolling, stuff like that? Yeah. So I kind of see it in a like in a moderator
You got
standpoint
that mod brain.
because because ultimately I just want to keep those spaces safe, not only for the streamer, but for the people that are in those communities and the communities that I am a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of like you get the one, and then if you keep going, you're done. Like, um,
Mhm.
I've dealt with this quite a bit just with family, and not just for being non-binary, but also queer of any letter you want to choose. And I think in addition, again, I agree with everything that everyone said. I think in addition, it's sort of depending on who's asking and what your current situation is, I think safety is an important thing. And if you think having that conversation is going to put you in any way at risk, financially, in terms of housing, whatever, I think you need to keep that into consideration. Just because someone else doesn't know your quote unquote label, it doesn't change who you are. Labels are there for others to understand our experiences. They are not there, and they are there for us to help us find other people with similar experiences. They are not there to tell us what our experiences are. So also if your label changes over time, like don't worry about the label. The label is for other people, not for you. Okay. So I think especially going forth with um, one of the things I think one of the best ways of educating people is, we often call it like like critical thinking and doing all this, and it's compassionate listening. Okay. Listening to the other person. see where they come from. One thing that I like to do is to ask questions instead of having them understand me. Usually, like, again, we bring in more scholars. If you're really trying to figure out who you are, we figure out who we are, what our self is, by seeing how other people are different from us. And so if you can help that person see themselves as sort of in dialogue with other humans, in dialogue with you, then over time, I think that's one of the things that plants the seed, that over time that they can start to understand, because they might, the next time they go shopping, they're like, oh, I like that pink shirt. Oh, I can't have that pink shirt. Wait, why can't I have that pink shirt? Like that was what was going on in the 90s at least. But it's like little bit by little bit, it's making them question themselves. And if you can make them question themselves, I think that's a great way to go forward, and it helps keep you safe in that. That's just to add to everything that people have said. Yeah.
That was beautiful. That was great.
It was just, oh. Plus, may I just say, y'all are really
By
good
my
at
vote. Yeah.
segueing into the next questions. Seriously, I'm like, I don't even need to be here. But you brought up that discovery is like, we discover ourselves by seeing how other people are different from us, which is absolutely amazing. And that leads us into the question of, do you believe gender is something that is discovered or something that can evolve? Is
Yes.
it so yes to both, or what do you think?
I think
Yes.
it's ever changing. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are again, labels should change. If you think about this, if when you first realized who you were, as a tiny little flesh bag, um, when you first realized who you were, like I still remember the day that like I like looked at my hands, I'm like, they're moving and I'm making them move. And it was sort of that like waking up period. I'm like, this is the Matrix, even though the Matrix didn't exist yet. Um, it If you still identify the same way you did when you first realized who you were, I'm sorry. Like, I think we should be rediscovering ourselves over time. Over time, we discover different types of identities, and then only after we discover what they are can we start to see how they interact with other identities. And when one changes, the other one's going to change because they're all in flux. We're human. It should be changing. So gender is that discovery again. There is no such thing as biological gender. There's no such thing as biological sex. There's no such thing as any of that. Um, it is a thing that we are taught, and and not just how we are taught, but it is also a thing we discover for ourselves. I think that's one of the beauties of being non-binary. For me, so some people say non-binary, they're like they're a little bit of both. They kind of like sit between like male and female. They can take from here and there. For me, I try to be outside of that as much as I can, that it's like, okay, that's over there. I don't really care what's over there. I'm going to be over here and do whatever I want to do. Right. So for me, it is that process it is an acknowledgement of continuous discovery. That is what my gender is. It is a process of continuous discovery of what makes me happy in life and how I express myself.
It's funny because I still look at my hand and I'm like, whoa, muscles are
Right?
doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, like, I had heart surgery a couple years ago, and then
I
they, like, showed me what happened. It's like, yeah, it hurt.
What? There's something in here?
but something Apple said makes me just want to make a say. I don't know if this actually has anything to do with the question, but just like y'all out there, people, non-binary people do not owe you androgyny. They don't owe you androgyny. Get into it.
That part. That part. I
Very.
watched a TikTok. I watched a TikTok because I spent all my life on TikTok because I'm like 12 years old apparently. Um, but there was a TikTok and it was a non-binary person, and they stood there and they were in a skirt and they were like, even when I'm femme, I'm still a them. And it was just the most, like, that has just stuck with me because of it. Just turn that out there. If anyone can find that TikTok again, please send it to me because I've lost it and I really want it back. It was
Da-da-da.
it was
Yeah.
amazing. But for me, I definitely know that gender, like, I'm still discovering myself. Still discovering myself. Like, it's that whole thing of when I first came out as non-binary, I was cool with being he, she, they. Then I realized I don't like he, him. I don't like he, so I went with she or they, and now I'm kind of moving away from the she, except for when I'm in drag. So it's consistent discovery and consistent finding out new things about yourself, and all of these, like, we are ever evolving creatures. We grow, we change, like everything about us changes. So what, like, my question to ask is, why are we trying to, like, why does a lot of the world try to stop us from changing and stop us from moving around and discovering more about ourselves? So Suscepticons in the world who want us to stop evolving, answer
I
my
mean,
question for me.
like, I feel like it's a fear-based thing, right? It's like people are afraid to face the fact that they also have the ability to change and not be so rigid in what they've been made to believe they are, or should be. And I think a lot of that pressure, that outside pressure, is fear based, and is like just perpetuating more fear on top of that. Just
With what your heinous said, I want to just comment on what your heinous said about we don't owe you androgyny. Um, there have been moments where I will sit there and be like, "Am I non-binary? I don't?" And sometimes I'll sit there and be like, I'm not non-binary enough. And I was sitting in a Discord call yesterday, and I said that, and they were like, "Wait for the panel and talk about this. Wait for the panel and talk about this." I think it was 60BB who was like, "Shh, talk about it on the panel. Talk about it on the panel. This is material. Talk about it on the panel." So, it's definitely, I have those moments where I'm like, am I non-binary because I'm not presenting a certain way, or I'm presenting more, masculine than feminine, or whatever, vice versa. So there's always that, like, that doubt that is planted into my brain, where it's like, you have to present a certain way in order to classify yourself as, whatever it is. And then as I'm saying it, I'm realizing how silly that is, where it's like, you don't have to present a certain way. If you say you are something, you are that 100%.
Hmm.
If I can add on to what Eve is talking about, because I think that's a very common feeling among non-binary people, is like, where's the line? Where do you cross it? And you're like, okay, and now I'm gonna use they them pronouns, and we've crossed the threshold. It's gonna be great. Like, there's no, like, exact crossing point where that happens, where you're suddenly like, okay, I've scored, this high on a BuzzFeed quiz, so now I'm, you know changing my gender markers. That doesn't exist with really anything, but, like, being non-binary, like, definitely not so much. I think for me, my experience being non-binary sometimes also intersects with, like, how I feel about my own identity as a trans person, because as someone who is not, who does not identify with a gender that they were assigned as birth, I do identify as being under the trans umbrella. And I have often felt not trans enough in a way that is very similar to being, not non-binary enough. And for me personally, I can only speak to my own experience. For a lot of it, for me, I've sort of looked back on that sort of phase of my thinking, and I understand it now to be that, since I am not necessarily read as trans by society, I don't necessarily experience the material oppression that trans people experience. And so, in the same way, as someone who may be, more, quote unquote, visibly trans, whatever that means to society. And so, in a way, it's been interesting because now I look back and I'm like, oh, if I, don't necessarily experience that sort of oppression, what can I do then as someone who doesn't experience that to use what I have in terms of privilege to subvert that and take that down? Because, you know, I do have unearned advantages that other people don't. And with this sort of, non-binary discovery journey, it's like you learn a lot of things about what other people are going through that you don't necessarily have to deal with. And so like using that sort of privilege to then, sneak into other spaces and be like, hey, listen, actually you should not be this oppressive and blah 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 and all of that sort of stuff. Like using that can really, really help and do amazing good. It doesn't have to be something that I sit with as like a a guilt thing, if that makes any sense.
Definitely makes a lot of sense. And I mean, once again, leading into the next question, like Arson Eve, do y'all want to moderate this? I'll just sit out, like I'll just sit over here, like barbecue sauce and my titties, living my best life, just dip some nuggets in there.
Yum.
Honey
Um,
barbecue.
but, but within non-binary discussion, transmedicalism, which is broadly defined as the belief that being transgender is contingent upon experiencing gender dysphoria or undergoing medical treatment in transitioning, it's a lot of words, but that is brought up quite a bit in discussion. Does dysphoria affect your life at all? And whether that's yes or no, do you feel that the supposed need to undergo procedures in order to be valid in your feelings and experiences is fair? So so we'll start with does dysphoria affect your life at all? Does it affect you? I know for myself, I can say 100%. There have been times where I've gone out to clubs, like for work Christmas parties, and I've had to present extremely masculine, and I felt really uncomfortable. I used to work for a company, and I was actually under contract where I couldn't talk about them for over a year because they were very, very no, you are not going to present any way that's not super hyper masculine because we want you to be attractive to girls. And that like triggered a lot of dysphoria, a lot of self-hatred of being like, am I disgusting? Am I ugly? Am I it really, really it fucked with my head. Like a whole new level of fucked with my head that I never had felt before. But dysphoria does affect me, but I will go out on the limb and say without dysphoria, I wouldn't know gender euphoria. So I am grateful to have felt dysphoria there. But what are y'all's experiences regarding dysphoria? Have you felt it? Anything? Arson?
Um, yeah, my relationship to dysphoria has been very interesting because, for the longest time there were things like I have body image issues and a lot of a lot of those could actually be attributed to dysphoria now that I have a little bit of perspective in terms of my own gender identity. But for the longest time, that was not something that figured into my own non-binary identity. And while it still took a little bit of settling into referring to myself as non-binary, for the longest time, dysphoria didn't necessarily figure into anything, and I think that's okay. Um, you know, it's gender. Gender is a construct. It is, and it's it's so funny because it's what does non-binary look like? What does man look like? What does woman like look like? While it's real and in the sense that it like affects our day-to-day lives and the way we're seen, it's made up in the sense that like it's made up, like uh, people got together and they were like, these are the rules. And so in a lot of ways, being non-binary has sort of allowed me to be like, I'm just not that. And that's all there is to it. It doesn't have to for me, like it never for the longest time was not like, okay, so I need to look like that in order to feel like this, which is not the same journey that every, non-binary person or trans person goes through, but that's how I felt at the time. And you know, which is a really long-winded to say, especially if you're like non-binary out there and listening to this, like dysphoria does not have to figure into your journey as a non-binary person in order for you to be valid, if that makes any sense.
And yeah, just to
Um,
like go off of that as well, like I personally also deal with dysphoria on a daily basis. But like I again, like I'm still on this journey of like understanding that for myself, and also just like again constantly questioning like how much of my identity is what I'm being told is my identity, and how much of that is genuinely me. And I will say like the one of the silver linings of the pandemic and losing my job was this like this this gift of being able to like not have to worry about like going to work and presenting a certain way, and it allowed me to reflect on why I was having anxiety attacks on a daily basis, like leaving the house, and um like why was I pacing back and forth, why was it so hard for me to pick an outfit to put on. Like I was so in just the day-to-day like survive get through this that like I wasn't even able to process what was actually going on with me. And so I will say that like again, like just on the same like non-binary people not owing you androgyny, it's like trans people don't owe you like changing their body or presenting a certain way. Yes, everybody's experience is different. Please choose what is the most valid thing for you and your experience. But like there's no one way to be non-binary or trans. And just yeah, keep questioning, keep like figuring out what makes the most sense for you, and question what is it that is being told and decided for you. Words.
mhm,
Yeah.
words.
Fleshbacks, you know.
We're all vessels. Just we're all vessels of flesh. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Mhm.
Wow, that got existential. Les, what do you think? Have you experienced dysphoria, and if like, do you feel comfortable sharing your experiences with it, or?
Yeah, yeah, it is a very daily thing. When I do go out, I do tend to go towards more, I know clothing is not gender specific, um, but in society, in stores, it is. And so for me, I do tend to gravitate towards men's clothes, especially plaid shirts and button ups and um, some nice pants, stuff like that, that do give me more of a gender euphoria feeling. Um, but then when it comes to like my body and the way that it's shaped, um, sometimes that can be hard to navigate and hard to find those type of items that will fit my body because I am a person that is a bigger size. Um, I'm a person that has a big chest. And so when it comes to button ups and stuff like that, like sometimes they just don't fit there. And I'm like, it, it, it's, I don't know if frustrating is the right word, but um, sometimes it just makes me think like, is there something medically that I can do to reduce that? And yes, there are. Um, but am I like ready to do that for myself?
And then it's like if you are, the accessibility factor of anything is it's surgeries are expensive, hair removal is expensive. Literally, it's like if you do decide that that's something that you want to do, like then there's like this whole other like wall that you have to climb, and it shouldn't be
Mhm.
expected that like most of us probably can't do any of those things or afford to do any of those things or have the time or to do any of those things, to heal from those things, like. And so like I don't really know where I was going with that, but words.
Oh, that makes sense.
Words.
Yeah,
And then
It's
is it
yeah.
it's not accessible stuff. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
right? No, no, sorry.
It's not easily accessible stuff, and while yeah, like there's things out there. It's like waiting lists are long. All of these things are expensive, and then there's upkeep as well, and sometimes like the physical what's the word that I'm thinking of? Effects and like
Mhm.
being out of commission for like months if you get a specific procedure done. Like that sometimes that just outweighs the actual getting it done. At least I know for me it does. But Apple, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We're also like all across the world right now, so I mean, internet. Yeah. Um, so and it's also even to like build off of that. Is it of course it's different for everybody, but is it that the desire for you changing your body in any way, like I think body hair is like a big one right now. It's like, is it the desire to actually get rid of the body hair, or is it the desire to live up to how people expect you to be if you're trying to be a certain way? Um, are you, if you're trying to like wear dresses and do this and do that, like, are you expected to shave? I don't know how many drag shows I've gone to where I've actually been told that I was not invited back because my former job, like I don't shave my chest. I'll often like show my chest, and sometimes I'll have like a beard. And I was not invited back because I was a drag queen, and I didn't look like a queen. And I said,
No.
I'm glad I'm not coming back. your
Well, yeah.
your $6 were not enough for me.
Oh, it's a very quickly,
Accurate.
can you pass
Just
on some names
it,
there?
it's
Let us
such a bad.
know.
Say
Pass on
what?
some names. We just want to talk. We
Let
just
us
want to
know.
talk.
Yeah, we
Tag
just
them.
want to talk.
Wanna
But it
talk.
Get
also
them.
it does open up great conversations, especially when you get into drag, because I think it's uh like you mentioned earlier, Nikki, that you started coming to your non-binary identity after doing drag, and to an extent, I did as well. I think that um, it's quite interesting when we talk about um, how we perform gender. Um, and we can say, okay, well, like long hair, makeup, all that, that means woman, right? And then like beard, all this means man, right? Well, then when you can have non-binary, it's like, well, kind of makes it difficult because the whole point is that it's none of that. Like it doesn't matter if it's like, we don't owe you androgyny, and androgyny is not that it is, sort of neither. It's that it's both at once. That is androgyny. It is both together. Okay, that's over here. We're over here. Like, what are you doing? Like, hi. Like, no, we're over here. So I think that to bring it back to the actual question, I think in terms of dysphoria, I've definitely experienced dysphoria, like many of you have said, like whether it comes to fashion. I think it's interesting that um, when we talk about gender, again, performing gender, it all comes to how we are presenting and expressing ourselves. And that usually comes down to fashion. And in fashion, I include like makeup or nails, all of that. But dysphoria in particular is a really interesting word. I think so. It is a like clinical term. It is a psychological term. It used to be, so gender dysphoria used to be called gender identity disorder, and they changed it, I want to say, in like 2013, because the idea of disorder um, was quite negative. Um, it was useful for certain situations at specific times for trans people, very, very specific situations, in order to get certain medical care covered by insurance. Today, I think it's even less useful. So that is one reason it got changed to gender dysphoria. But dysphoria itself is like, if you look it up, it means it's clinically significant distress. Well, I'm not a psychologist, but I have a friend that is. Their name's Will Beischel. They're at the University of Michigan. They actually talk about gender dysphoria into gender euphoria, and they they have been dealing with the idea of not only distress in terms of like clinically significant, but especially with how we think day to day dysphoria and sort of opening up the term to how we use it more so just in how we're using it right now, just dysphoria. Like it doesn't have to be clinically significant, whatever that means. There's no actual bar for it. Um, I'm talking in circles and I forgot the original question. So there we go. There we go.
You
But yes, gender dysphoria sucks, and we're just gonna go with that. Yeah.
Can I jump in really quick to add a point onto that? Because you talked a bit about gender euphoria, and I have to tell you, like, as someone who had not experienced gender euphoria for about 26, 27 years before finding an outfit that really spoke to me. I when I put that on and looked in the mirror, I have literally never felt more at ease, at home, relaxed as I ever have in my entire life. And let me tell you something. I am constantly chasing that feeling all the time. I'm like, is this what like being cis feels like? Because like if so, like I'll have what y'all are having. Like, oh my goodness gracious, like this feels amazing. Like I wish I could feel like this all the time. And for me personally, finding what that is for being non-binary is always feels like it's always gonna be, throwing pasta at the wall and seeing if it sticks. But it's those glimmers that are always like, oh, like it's out there just one of these days.
I think it's also important. I'm also like slightly remembering the question now because I think like a term that we didn't bring up specifically, but we're sort of skirting around is transmedicalism and whether or not you need to change your body in order to be trans and whether or not you have to have that clinically significant dysphoria in order to be trans. There's a few different there's a bunch of different definitions of trans, of course, but the one I typically look at is that it is identifying as a gender that is different than the one that you were assigned at birth. So, in that definition, all non-binary people would be trans. But like Arson said earlier, I personally, whereas they use the term in terms of for trans, I don't use the term trans in most situations, just because um, I think unfortunately in our society, the idea of passing still is so important for other people, not you know not for us, but for other people. They find it as such a amazing, fascinating thing, which I don't really understand. Um, but train of thought, choo choo, it went, it went. Bye. It's like train simulator. Nikki just like took it away. Nikki took it away. Choo choo. Get the choo choo emotes in chat. It's gone.
How
It's
dare you
gone.
bring up Train
Yeah.
Simulator in the
Um,
Christian chat.
we can be trans. Don't have to do it. Dysphoria. What is that? Who needs it? Yeah.
Exactly. And Eve, um, you talked about your experience with Euphoria, which was like that, like I c- that's an amazing feeling. And
Mhm.
so, what is your experiences with dysphoria, Euphoria? Like, fill us in, tell us everything. We want to know.
Well, when I'm not this beautiful drag artist, drag queen, I am a balding dude. So anytime I look in the mirror, I see, male pattern baldness. I see, hair growing on my face, and I'm just like, ooh. So I'm starting my days off with that, and then I'll go to the store and I can sir, I can help you over here, or sir, do you need any help with anything? And then that adds something to it. So then there's so much that society is giving me dysphoria over, And something that I have no control over. Like whatever my body is doing, it's gonna do. Like I can't grow hair in the areas that I am not growing hair. And then like, the comments on it where I'm just like, I laugh it off. But there's it's that gut punch. Those gut punches are constantly being thrown. So when I'm able to um one of the things that I've actually started doing is when I am shaving my face, um I try to, I know it's so like stereotypical, like, this is society tells women that they need to shave, but I have actually held on to that, and I've used that to gain my euphoria of like, oh, I'm shaving, that shaving, the essence of shaving is giving me that euphoria. Um but one of the things that I'm finding hard is like presenting. So when I don't want to wear, a simple t-shirt and a pair of jeans, I don't really have accessibility when it comes to clothing because, I'm, 6 foot, 270 pounds. Like it's very hard to find something that's going to fit this body. So it's hard because, on the internet, I'm able to be like chest up and I'm like, ooh, but like full on boxer briefs are showing right now. Like everything is like everything's out. The fantasy is gone. But like, there's definitely I was talking actually with Arson about this where my drag persona is that overextension of what I'm trying to present to the world. Like I would never go like doing this every day, like going out, be like, I'm just gonna go to Walmart to get groceries. Like I could not do that. But
Why not?
there is could you
That's
Social
a
imagine just
distancing,
being like
gosh.
but like
you just walk into
for,
someone's like,
just boxers out, everything. They're like
It wouldn't be any different
but
than everybody else at Walmart, really.
the best dressed.
True. Very true.
But for me, it's just kind of like trying to find that point where even if there's dysphoria present, I can erase that by utilizing something I know that's going to bring me euphoria.
"Mhm. Thank you for sharing
Words.
that." We have okay. I feel like we should let's have we I feel like we've done all the planned questions. So let's go to like some viewer questions. Let's do it. Let's do it. Um we have a question here that is from Canary Moon. They asked, as someone who's on their own trip of self-discovery with their identity, were you scared or anxious at times going down the road because of the norms pushed upon us? I can 100% say yes. Like
Oh man.
I live like Dublin and Ireland is still like we're not super progressive. Like I said it during Reclaiming Our Time, Ireland's racist. Ireland is also very transphobic. Like Ireland's a shy country to live in. Just don't move here. But like like I think the extent of comfort that I feel is going out in like platform boots, like oversized hoodie, very kind of just like you can't tell what I look like. We'll leave it like that. But there are times where I want to go out in like I want to go out in a jumpsuit or like I want to go out in like I went to a house party in a dress once and that was great, but I would like the backlash that I got from that was insane because it was like, "Oh, you're trans." I was like, no, I'm non-binary, but you're trans. You're dressed like a girl." I'm like, well, what is dressed like a girl? Like the norm, it's either I feel like the big one for me was either you're either trans or you're not. There's or like trans and like wanting to medically transition to to another gender. Like for me it would be female, like fully transitioning to female. Where am I going with this? But it was either you're this or you're this, and it's like okay, but I don't want to have this discussion with people, so I'm just gonna like tone it down. but that's my
We tone
experiences with
ourselves
it.
down. We tone ourselves down to make people comfortable.
Yeah, definitely. But what are your
Um,
experiences?
it's definitely something where, you know, when I did buy that skirt, it almost felt like I was like this like burglar and I was like going in and stealing something and I felt very just like, ooh, look at me. Ooh, I'm daring. You know, so there's definitely like this imprint in my brain that like you're not supposed to do this, but you're doing it. You're not supposed to do that. But coming to the realization that I'm not supposed to do this because society tells me I'm not supposed to do this. That's why I'm thinking this is because I've been told so much that you're not allowed to do this. So allowing yourself to say fuck you to that voice and just do it, but going off of what Apple said, as long as you are safe and secure and you're able to do that, then do it. But if not, try to find like other things that can bring you that joy. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Definitely.
Words.
Words. Arson, your microphone is gone again. Apple, do you have anything to add?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Were you scared or anxious going down the road of self-discovery with gender identity because of the quote unquote norms pushed upon us?
Absolutely. And to be honest, I still am. You know, I could be one thing, you know, in the safety of my office here. Like that definitely does not have a bed right behind me. Um, where I'm only seen from here up. Like he would say, I don't have to fit in shoes that there are no size shoe. Like I don't have to do any of that. But I think from the very get go, like I remember the first time I like painted my nails. Just like had never even heard the term non-binary. Um, but I was like, well, I remember when I was in kindergarten and I would use a pencil and I would like color over my nails and I was like, I remember that brought me so much joy. I wonder, I'm kind of depressed. Wonder if that will work. And it helped, but I was terrified. And I remember I would like I would go up to like fast food and I would like hand my card over it. Like I didn't want to show my nails. And now I do my own acrylics. I'm not going anywhere. So why make my life
Just
difficult?
walking around like
Um,
this.
yeah, like acrylics. I do all the and it's like I go through I teach in 4-inch like thigh high 4-inch stilettos, um, you know, makeup, doing all of that. I get the Snickers and not the candy. Um I get like all of like the laughing in the back of the classroom and then I get to take that moment to call people out and you know say, you know, let's have this conversation. I think one of the things that has helped me so much in being afraid, like especially like the first time you go out and drag, like every time you do something new, it's sort of scary. I think that's normal because if we didn't, I think that's where dysphoria comes in, right? It's us not meeting up to the norms that society is pushing upon us, and we know that there are what's the right word? There are consequences at times. So again, be safe for when you're doing things. But I think one of the ways that has helped me over time is finding more people that I follow on social media and sort of like normalizing it in my own head. Even when I was coming out, sort of someone who became like a mother to me gave me her Netflix account just so I could like watch movies with gay characters because that would never like even something it seems so simple now, but I was terrified and I didn't know what it looked like. I remember I was teaching a class a couple years ago and we were dealing with gender and everything, and I decided, okay, well, I know drag queens are kind of seen sort of, you know, commonly now, especially with RuPaul's Drag Race. So I didn't use any drag queens in the materials that I showed. I used drag kings all day. And then I showed the local performers and was using examples that people could actually, you know, walk out of their houses into a local club and see. And then I had some students come up after me and there was a young girl, she was shaking. This is like a first year college student. I could see she was shaking a little bit. And she was like, women can do drag? and I can look like a woman still, or I can look like, of course, we're still using binary terms this time, like, or I can like draw on a beard. And she was terrified because it was something that she had wanted to do and thought she had been completely shunned for. And so I think being able to see that, it has really helped me. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey. Um, uh, can only speak from personal experience, but on one hand, it can be scary because even the term non-binary, even within queer circles, can feel like a box because um, what is non-binary? There are so many different ways to be non-binary, and there are so many labels underneath being non-binary that in a lot of ways, like that when people talk about non-binary people, we are not a monolith. There are so many different there's like, there's like agender, gender fluid, third gender. That's the other thing, is that non-binary it's not man, woman, non-binary. That's it. Like non-binary is not a third gender to be referred to and marketed to. So that's one thing where it can be like, oh God, like there are so many labels underneath non-binary that like, where am I going to fit? And the truth is, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you fit multiple. Some days you fit, exactly 3. And like that's the reality of, the situation. So that can be intimidating to jump into. But for me personally, it was not really super difficult. And looking back on it, part of it honestly has to do with the fact that when I look at non-binary representation in media, most non-binary figures that I see are skinny and white, and I'm a skinny white person. So I can imagine that there are other non-binary people out there who do not share those same traits as me, who probably feel very underrepresented and don't necessarily know what a famous non-binary person looks like that looks like them. And that's sad and absolutely needs to change. It needs to change on Twitch. It needs to change in music and movies and television. Um, it there are so many different types of non-binary people out there, and someone out there needs to be able to see someone who is non-binary, who is famous, who is successful, who is doing well, who is well spoken, that looks like them.
I couldn't have said it better myself, honestly. So yeah. Les, Your Highness, have either of you felt scared, anxious, nervous, not resilient,
Reserved.
someone
I
else?
mean, yeah, I still am. I mean, yeah, every day. But that doesn't stop me from continuing to push and explore. And yeah, again, it's like I've been so many versions of myself in my life already, and that's not going to change. It's just going to keep going. And yeah, it can be scary and overwhelming and definitely gives me anxiety. Woo! But yeah, words.
I
Les?
guess I guess for me, I feel like I haven't really experienced more of like the sense of like being scared when I'm like walking on the street. I've I've kind of gotten the sense like when I am wearing clothing that I want to wear, I am perceived female and I am essentially have the what is it? Um essentially am labeled a tomboy in that sense. And so that is kind of, kind of gives me a little anxiety or something and it's like, no, I'm just wearing what I want to wear. It shouldn't have to be perceived as me looking a certain way for you to like assume my gender. This is something that I feel comfortable in, depending on whatever the season is. Like, I just, sometimes I just don't like sleeves or I'd like a nice button up, you know.
I mean, on that note, like honestly, like as I was getting dressed for this, I was like, I'm hating how this looks. And then I was like, wait, why, why am I accepting this as it is? This is a blazer. I put it on upside down, and now it suits me. Now it's me. It wasn't before. Now it is. This shirt on backwards. Yes, backwards.
I have a dress that
I
I
can't
wear
tell.
over my head, like just over my shoulders sometimes because it's got tulle and it's just like floofy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Honestly,
and
I'm wearing a
it's
crop top. Like,
yeah.
And Eve
I'm
has
in a
no
dress
pants.
that's 2 sizes too small for me.
ooh. But
Um, a
we
person that
are.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
No, no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh no, Apple mentioned a person. Their name is Jeffrey Marsh. You can follow them on Instagram and TikTok, who I have found so much comfort in, because they address a lot of like things that I'm feeling. But also too, there are a lot of non-binary streamers here on Twitch who are part of Stream Queens that you can follow as well. And I like I hope that this person knows that I am absolutely obsessed with them, but like I've had so many conversations with Arson, and I have never felt more seen, heard, and respected than with talking with Arson. So like you can find people that are gonna give you that comfort and give you that ability to be yourself and have conversations with them and talk to them about the problems that you're going through and your journey that you're going through, because chances are a lot of us have gone through it, and chances are you know your story is going to be different than my story and Art's stories and your Heinous stories. So there's a lot of people on this platform that you can find, especially within Stream Queens, um, that that are willing to listen to you.
Mhm. Definitely. Like, and subtle plug, we have a link tree with all of the members of Team Stream Queens that are trans, non-binary, and AFAB. So if you want to support them, you can go to Linktree. So it's link.rtr.ee/SQ Fems N Thems. I think there's a command for it. If not, I will post it into chat. You reach out to me, you can find it pretty easily. But we are coming to the end of the panel. I just want to thank you all so much for being here, for being awesome, for being amazing, and for sharing your experiences and your everything. So let's just have a quick fire round of where we can find you, if you've anything coming up. Also, if you want to give a just like one line of advice for anyone who is out there discovering their gender identity, that you wish you had heard from someone. Um, let's start. Eve, let's start with you.
Well, my name is Evil Queen, and I'm the prettiest bitch you've ever seen. I stream here on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. So as soon as I'm done with this panel, I will be starting soon. So I stream 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time until whenever the fuck I want, because I'm an adult. Um you can find me Evil Queen on all platforms. And just know that you matter, you are loved, you are important, and what you're going through isn't going to be constant. And the world works in balances, and you may feel like you're going through such a bad time, but there is equilibrium, and there will be good coming your way, and it will find you. But just know that you matter, you're important, you are beautiful, and you are you. No one else out there is you. So you are such an important person, and you matter.
Thank you, Eve. I'm gonna start crying by the end of this.
I
Like,
know, I'm like
if
tearing
You better
up.
cry.
I literally am.
like, no, I spent 30 minutes on my makeup today. Um, um, let's go to Les. Les, close us off, my love.
Um, yeah, you can find me here on Twitch, at Lesbiana. I don't have a set schedule, but if you do go to my page, you can go to my Discord and all my social medias at Lesbiana, and I will pretty much either post if I'm going to stream or right as I'm going live, which typically happens. But you can also find me on some of the other Stream Queens communities. I do mod for quite a bit of them, and so you can always find me in those chats. And um, you know, if you are questioning or have any questions, you know, you can always. I'm always available to talk um, and also in the communities that I'm in. Uh, we're very, very open and safe to take questions and stuff like that. So
Awesome. Thank you, Les.
yeah.
Oh, Apple just like mutes momentarily.
Yeah.
I had to
6 feet
cough.
away.
I'm
6
sorry.
feet away.
I know.
6
I
feet
know.
away.
Come on.
Apple, would you like to tell us where we can find you if you've got anything coming up and something that you wish you had heard when you were
Sure.
discovering yourself?
Sure. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Appleglass. I stream my schedule's kind of awkward. I stream Monday and Saturday nights and Thursday and Sunday days. Obviously, I'm not streaming today because it would be right now. I do a little bit of everything gaming. We will do Duolingo streams, art, everything. You can also find me on social media at Real Appleglass, not the fake one, but the real Appleglass, as well as, and I want to mention a new website called peertopeer.live. It is a place where you can find marginalized creators based on different identities that they put in. So these are people. It's not saying like you're not going to be assuming someone's identity there. Like they've chosen these things, and I would encourage you, especially those of you who do stream, as well as those of you who may be trying to guide a raid when you're looking for someone new. Um, Maybe check out peer to peer first. If you're trying to find new content, just scroll through. I think it's a great platform that's been made by trans creators. Because if we aren't going to have a trans tag on Twitch, we got to do something, we've got to stick together. So something that I wish I had heard. I'm really bad with those types of questions. um I would say that I think that one of the best things I could have heard is that confusion is normal, that being unsure of yourself is normal, that thinking one thing one day and then thinking something different about yourself the next day is very normal, and it's sort of exciting, and that by the time you're 30 you're not old. Like your life is just starting. Honestly, that is one of the biggest things that would probably have helped me. I'm still not there
Ah.
yet, but I'm trying to think about life as going forward. I'm like, wait, yes, I've been in college for 10 years. I've done a lot. Dang. But this is just the start of another 10 years. Where could I be if I actually think about life that way? Okay.
Thank you, Apple. We love you. Your Highness.
Hey,
Take it
it's
away.
me, Uranus, also known as Your Highness, also known as Uranus. All pronunciations are valid, just as are all forms of drag, all non-binary identities, all trans identities. Um, you can catch me at twitch.tv/Your Highness. I'm a variety streamer, play lots of games, and I do mental health focused streams, trying to destigmatize and normalize talking about mental health. And on that note, I am taking a little bit of a break from streaming to focus on my mental health. And I would not have been able to do that without the support of this amazing community. Yeah. Love y'all.
Love you. Arson, my love. My like the fucking love of my life. I swear to God.
Nikki,
I
love of
could
my life, can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, good. Can you hear me? I feel like the Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now?
Oh
Um,
my God.
my name is Arson. You can find me at twitch.tv/ArsonNikki. I stream Saturdays and Sundays. Yes, that does mean today, tonight, and Wednesdays. You can also find me across social medias, all under the same name, Arson Nikki. And I would say my advice to anyone, who is potentially starting their non-binary journey, and really anyone ever, is trust your gut, trust your instinct, trust your intuition. If it feels bad, there's a reason, and listen to that before going forward.
Mhm. Thank you, Arson. And my name is Nikki Stones. I'm the neon loving K-pop obsessed drag queen from Dublin, Ireland. I stream on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, except I took a break today because every month I run a drag show called Blacklight. Our next one is on April 24th, so make sure to come on by for that. You can catch me on all social media at Nikki_Stones. And one thing that I wish I was told is you are the only person that can choose your own labels. No one else can label you. You are who you choose to be. That is it, no matter what anyone says. I want to give a special, special thank you to everyone who has been working behind the scenes on all of this. Thank you so much to Infor Prayers for literally breaking her back to make this event happen. We would be nowhere without her. She's literally sitting in the call with us, like running all of the tech. Love her to absolute bits. Thank you to Stream Queens for allowing this to happen. Thank you to all of the mods. Let's get all of the hype in chat for all of the mods and stick around because we have so many more panels coming up. In fact, we have a panel coming up very, very soon, within the next 10 minutes or so, which is going to be the trans panel, if I am correct. Am I correct in saying it's the trans panel? Women in color. My bad. See, they wrote it. Everything's in. It's all. There's a schedule that'll pop up. Okay, thank you, Ivy. We just want to wish you all the best day ever. I love all of you so much. We love you. You are valid. You are amazing, and we will definitely see you soon. All of the love.